I'm Jeroen. Jeroen Korthout is not very easy to pronounce in English. I am speaking with you all the way from Antwerp in Belgium. So my name is actually a Dutch spoken name, hence the funny way of writing and saying it. I am co-founder and CEO of Salesflare, and Salesflare is an easy to use and also automated CRM, mostly used by smaller companies. Smaller companies, that means like anywhere ranging from one person on the software, like selling at the company, to about 30, 40. Um, we mostly serve agencies, startups, and software companies. And why people choose us is because we offer a CRM which is very easy to use as a practical sales tool. But on the other hand, also offering a high level of automation, especially in terms of data input, because we started Salesforce when we figured that all CRMs were very like work intensive in terms of data input, and we thought that all the data you were actually inputting it into a CRM was already somewhere else, like in your emails, calendar, phone, and then we started Salesforce. But today I'm going to talk about remote sales. This is a topic that became much more relevant recently. Um, 2020 started out like every other year, beautiful new year. But what most of us didn't understand, we could have seen it coming because there was some stuff happening in China already, was the coronavirus coming along. And that changed a lot of things nowadays in Belgium and most of Europe and parts of the US. I don't know where not and where yes. Social distancing is the norm, and that brings about a lot of challenges. Certainly in the sales space, where normally you get close to a customer to sell something, you have meetings in person. All this social distancing makes it slightly more difficult. Um, Now, it's not just this, it's of course way broader than this, like you all know. Like complete industries are rethinking themselves, like it says on the slide. There's, for instance, we have events agencies in our customer base that have to completely switch now from organizing offline events, which they're really good at, all of a sudden to doing online events. The events themselves also all of a sudden need to reinvent themselves, and they have no idea where they're going. Um, Restaurants have been doing deliveries for a while, but now it's just exploding. Concerts are going virtual, but then slightly more relevant to us. Um, Buying moves much more online. Contacts go from a lot of live contacts to almost 100% digital contacts. I'm personally only seeing my wife at the moment, although that's changing because we have a new rule here that we can see four other people. Uh, but all the other contacts are virtual. And all of a sudden, just about everyone is working from home, while salespeople or people working with customers would spend a lot of time in the car and the rest of the time in the office. Everybody does everything from home now. Now, the thing is, people might think that this is just temporary, and a part of this indeed will be. But COVID-19 will certainly stay with us until way into next year. And as it's taking so long, a lot of these changes might also be permanent. They might not be over when we when the virus has passed, let's say, and we're all vaccinated. Um, so there's all of a sudden a big shift going from the old way we knew of doing things to a completely new way of doing sales. And in very short, sales is going remote, which then brings a bunch of different issues. At least the most frequent questions I'm getting about this, because we've been doing remote sales for just about, I guess, 5 years now. We first started selling Salesforce locally, but we very quickly switched to a global view where we would sell to customers in the US all the way to Australia. And I've been doing sales for the last 5 years, always through video calls like this one. Um, so we get a lot of questions from customers now. The first one is an important one because a lot of pipelines are just getting completely dried out. It's how to keep generating leads. And the second one is adapting to the new way of doing meetings. The third one is how to actually organize that sales process fully online. And last but not least, it's not super easy to keep the same sort of momentum when you're working from home. And we'll get into that also. So, first, with all these pipelines being slashed, how do you keep generating leads? Now, there are many ways to generate leads online, but if you want to go for the most effective ways, despite what people are saying and despite all the regulations and all that, the most effective way is still emailing people. And that's actually not true. The most effective way is calling people. And actually, calling people is not too bad lately. I must say, for instance, when I'm getting calls, I'm way more likely to respond than when I would be in an office setting. So, if I could recommend the most effective way, it would be calling. But then next to that, if you want to um, pull it to another level and sort of add some automation to this, then sending emails and connecting through LinkedIn are two great ways to do this. Um, you can automate a series of emails you're sending, and you need to watch out, of course, who you email because of all the rules around that, and just because you don't want to annoy people, which is in general bad for you and your company. But if you target the exact right people, where you know that they for sure have a need for your service or product, then this is a very effective way of reaching out. The easiest tricks are to, in the subject line, for instance, do uh, your company name and their company name, or how you've been, or something simple like that, to maximize the open rate, and then have a very succinct email, not a huge wall of text that doesn't immediately jump into the sale, uh, um, except if you can trigger their interest in a non-salesy way from the start. Like if you can say like, hey, you're a SaaS company, we already work for these big companies, what we do for them is this very specific thing that I know is a problem for you. You want to have a chat, that might work. um, or another thing that works quite well is saying like, we offer this, who is responsible for this at your company, and sort of taking it from there, because it takes a very um, small amount of effort from their side, very small buy-in, which then in the end means a lot for you, because if you, for instance, send it to the CEO and he sends it on to one of their people, it you have a much higher chance of actually connecting with these people, because it was the CEO putting you in contact with them, and for the CEO himself, it didn't mean much. It was just sending it on to the right person. Via LinkedIn, the big advantage there is that you can very easily pull a very target target list. The best thing is to get a LinkedIn Sales Navigator subscription, because then you have very advanced filters. And the other advantage is that you can visit more profiles a day and send more messages without getting to the limits of LinkedIn. And there's tools like TuxSoup then that allow you to actually automate this. You can pull all the people you're visiting into an Excel file to then afterwards use that to email them after you got their email addresses with a tool like Voilà Norbert. But I'll type that in the chat because it's sort of it's in French and not everybody might understand what I'm saying. But this is an awesome tool that, based on the first name, the last name, and the domain, will pull you the right email addresses, so that you then can go from LinkedIn to emailing. Although reaching out with DuckSoup is also highly effective, as long as if you connect on LinkedIn with someone with a message, try focusing it on connecting and make it a relevant connection instead of going straight to the sale. If you're interested in your product, that will happen anyway. Otherwise, you'll just end up in the heap of spam connection requests like all the others. Rob said that DuckSoup is awesome, but that sometimes the first name tags get mixed up. I don't have this experience, but I'm sure it could happen. I called an Ashley a Greg. Never happened to me. And then, second thing you can do, highly effective, bit more long term, is to engage in networking online. There is no offline networking anymore nowadays, so you'll have to do something online. An easy thing is to answer questions on Quora, relevant questions for what you're offering. There's a lot of people asking stuff there, and you might be able to sort of place yourself there as an expert and recommend your services. Then very effective for our business, for instance, our Facebook groups. This is not because we're just selling stuff there, but it's because we're very active there, which builds a network, which then helps our business to sell. The discussions on Facebook groups as well as on Reddit are very high value discussions, even above the level of the ones on Quora, I would say. Depending, of course, on the groups you engage in. On Facebook, there are some less qualitative ones. But if you're in the right ones, there's actually like big groups of people engaging around certain topics. And if you can then help people there, connect with people there, it's a good source of business on the longer term. Rob asks what kind of Facebook groups. That totally depends on what you're offering. We, for instance, have a SaaS software, partner with a lot of SaaS software, and sell it also to a lot of SaaS companies. And SaaS Growth Hacks is, for instance, a good group. But then, for instance, I'm doing a webinar next week for a group of recruiters. It's a lot of recruiters connecting on recruiting and exchanging things, much like we do in SaaS Growth Hacks. And a lot of them have started using Salesforce, so I'm going to do a webinar there. That again is a great thing as well. You can launch products on Product Hunt. It's a bit specific whether your services. I can do that to Rob. I can message you that. So Product Hunt is specific to let's say product lovers and startup people. If your services or products are very good for those groups, you can launch on Product Hunt. It's the best place nowadays to launch a product, being a software, being sort of a fancy hardware thing, or because most of the press have stopped really covering product launches. Only if you got a lot of investment. People head to a platform to be on top of the latest things, and this is the leading platform. Something that is very cheap right now as well, it's not really networking, but it's on social networks, is running ads. The first thing that most companies pulled back are their ad budgets. which makes that currently, I think it's 30 to 40% cheaper to advertise on things like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. The fourth logo is Quora again, and the fifth one is YouTube. Then my third tip is what you're doing today is engaging in online events. I don't think there will be many offline events anymore this year. Some event organizers that are here are not fully convinced yet, but I think they're getting there. All the others have already started working on online events. So I'm personally speaking at four of the ones on the slide here. I'm doing my best. It's I think on the 20th of May, I'm for instance speaking at three events in a day. That would normally not be possible, even because the one event is in the US, another one in Slovenia, and another one in the Netherlands. But nowadays that's all possible because everything is just online, and you don't need to incur any travel costs and all that. It's all super easy. No lost time. I just hop on a call here for 30 minutes and we connect with each other. I think I need to speed up a bit because we've already taken 20 minutes. Remote meetings. This is for some people who have not done this before. It might be a new thing, but I'm sure that after now almost 2 months, you're kind of getting there. I'm going to share a few tips to do this better because, of course, remote meetings are very productive. You don't need to drive anywhere, just like with the conference, you don't need to travel anywhere. But they're also less personal. So how can you cope with this? First of all, main tip: always turn the video on. Even if it's only at the beginning of the call, it makes a big difference because you can actually make much more of a personal connection. Even if it's not the same as in a live meeting, it makes a big difference. To try to then add an extra level, try to be more yourself. Be more informal. If let's say you have kids and your daughter is coming by or something, she can say hi to whoever you're calling with, and so it doesn't have to be all strict. Everybody knows you're working from home. You could show a place here. So we all know I'm human. Using your tone of voice also helps because you're not seeing my full body language. I'm not a big user of tone of voice, let's say, but I try to do it more when I'm on video calls. And a fourth tip would be to be even more thoughtful. It sort of replaces this little. Was it easy to find it here? Kind of talk at the beginning of a conversation. It's nice if you remember very well what you discussed the other time. If you've already done a bit of research around people, and sort of take away the feeling that you're just hopping on another video call, but they're actually really really caring on the person you're calling with. A tip that someone asked me to add to the slide is that it's very important to make, if it's a demo call, to not just run through a demo, but to make it more of a listening and discussing experience, because otherwise a lot of deals go to die because you're not sort of adapting it to the customer, but just droning on about your product, which usually doesn't work. Then next to video calls, there's a whole space in between that, of course. You can make all that also much more personal if you send videos again. There's Bonjoro, with which you can send videos, for instance, when people sign up to your whatever. You can send them a Bonjoro that says, "Hey, welcome to the list," and then you send it, and it just goes out to them. Super easy. Vidyard is more of if you want to record videos that you can send over in emails. of yourself. Loom is more focused on screen videos, and Drift is sort of the a bit similar to Loom, I would say. Well, the Drift video at least, because Drift by itself is a chat platform for websites. And another thing I also try to do as much as possible is using chat. Most of my business conversations are actually on Facebook Messenger, and then on WhatsApp, on Intercom, which is the fourth logo, and on LinkedIn, and only then on email. The thing is with email, and I'll come to that in the next part. So how to keep closing a maximum of deals is it creates a very large distance. It's asynchronous, a very dry kind of official style, where chat is instant. You can exchange short messages, and it's much more like you're having a conversation with people. So I would always choose chat over email whenever possible. It's a much better way to build relationships. Then the added advantage is if you add everyone you're in contact with on LinkedIn, and the message at the bottom left is not very readable after uploading an easy webinar, but I automatically connect with every person who comes on Salesforce, at least if they use a company email address. And then from there, I ask for feedback and we start a conversation. But this helps to connect with prospects in between the times that we communicate. Additionally, next to that, you can start sharing, creating content, sharing it on platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is for most purposes the best place. And that helps to build a relationship as well, next to all the conversations you're having. I'm having 3 minutes. Jake is saying, so I'll be a bit quicker. Tracking everything perfectly is very important to keep closing a maximum of deals. What you're working on in your sales pipeline, what to do when in your task list, and what you're discussing, and timelines that you're keeping. This avoids a lot that you miss deals and miss out on information. A very, very important 2 key rules is always focus on the next step and make getting to the next step super easy. I suppose we can make the slides of this presentation available afterwards, so you can read the rest of the tips then. Then the fourth thing, and super important, because for extrovert salespeople, all this less social contact means that you get much less energy from people, and it's much easier to lose your momentum. And for introverts, it also takes a bit more energy to get on calls and do all the things I said before. So to keep that all up, there I have 2 important tips on habits. The first one is to instead of focusing on a revenue number like output level sales quotas, to focus on input level sales quotas, like how many calls, emails you're doing a day, or a bit higher level to say you want to create that many new qualified opportunities a day. And then to track that visually so that you can really see that it's happening. Some people do what I'm suggesting here, to drop a coin in a jar for every call you place. That makes that you when you're doing these, like let's say 50 calls a day, you move the coins from one side into the jar and you can really feel it happening. But of course also track it in your CRM so you have all the data and the numbers there. Then communicate more than you would normally. Over communicate with your team. The danger is otherwise that things are not said. You're not in the same place, so things don't happen naturally. You really need to give it an extra push. So I recommend doing weekly pipeline reviews to go through the pipeline, all the customers. Daily stand-up meetings to say what you've done the last day and what you do that day. That's something we do consistently at Salesforce, to keep everyone aligned on what everyone else is doing, and also sort of as a reflection moment for yourself. But don't keep it all formal either. The informal part needs to be kept alive. So try to do some informal video calls, or if you have a Slack channel for funny stuff, ask about how the other people are doing, share how your weekend was, all those kind of things you would normally do in the office, like being with colleagues and friendly, and I'll try to keep doing that if you're remote. And last but not least, of course, work together in one system. And I recommend our own system, but there's many others. If you want to use Salesforce, I have a little discount code for you, only for the participants to this presentation. And then I had a time for questions reserved.
Sorry, Jurgen, I'm gonna have to interrupt you. I posted in the chat. There's actually a Q&A channel, so we can continue that there. And there's also a document sharing channel just for your information.
Cool. Will the presentation be available there as well, or?
If you would like to put it there, it can be.
Yeah, for me that's fine.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you for being all here today, and I wish you a very interesting rest of the conference.